auditioned to land a role in 6 years. Scorsese complied with Jonah's request as a formality, because after seeing him perform in the drama Moneyball, he was already convinced of Jonah's fit for the part. However, in order to guarantee a spot in the film, Jonah cut his royalties to $60,000, the minimum amount allowed by the Actors Guild.
It's fucking good, right?
Once on set, he quickly became known as the King of Improv. Jonah not only caught everyone off guard with his remarks, but also with an artificial penis and dentures. To overcome the lisp they caused, the actor would put them in and chat with random people on the phone for hours at a time.
One thing I know about in this world is airlines. And Kushan Airlines is the future of airlines.
By the way, one of his improvs got out of control,
Who's fucking crazy?
and Josh Bundall actually punched him so hard that his false teeth flew out. But Hill never broke character.
Okay?
Although, the script had plenty of crazy scenes on its own. Wharf tossing, parading strippers, and a flight to Vegas. And yes, the goldfish survived. Animal cruelty laws allow the actor to put the fish in his mouth for up to 3 seconds, and then put it back into its tank. Jonah is also the only actor to be admitted to the hospital for a vitamin D overdose from the false cocaine. By the way, the creators were forced to change the names of several of the main characters, especially Danny Porrish, who became Donny Azov. Danny had threatened to sue the production, and had every right to do so. But back to casting. In addition to Matthew McConaughey,
I fucking love that.
Margot Robbie
Stop flexing your muscles, Jordan. You look like a fucking imbecile.
and Jean Dujardin also joined the ensemble. 3 directors featured in the picture: Rob Reiner,
This is obscene.
Jon Favreau,
Stock manipulation, high pressure sales tactics, ticky tack shit like that.
and Spike Jonze.
I don't know anything else about them other than that.
Another industry professional helped Martin stage the scene with Steve Madden.
My name's Steve Madden.
Now we know who you are.
Steven Spielberg had come to visit a friend on the set, but got so carried away by the process that at first he started giving advice to the actors, and then later even helped choose angles and set up cameras.
Let's give it up for Steve Madden and his awesome Mary Lou. Hold that up, hold that up, hold that up proud.
By the way, there were real Stratton Oakmont brokers scattered throughout the crowd scenes in The Office. Rodrigo Prieto, who had become famous for his work with Alejandro Gonzalez, Inarritu, and Oliver Stone, was brought on as head cinematographer. It was his collaboration with Stone on Wall Street and Money Never Sleeps that got the director's attention.
I go to the one place on earth that befit my high mind.
The most difficult scene to film was the prelude trip.
I mean, I had skipped the tingle phase and went straight to the drool phase.
Falling down the stairs and attempting to open the car with his feet was an improvisation by Leonardo, which he was only able to perform once due to seriously injuring his back in the process. The flight in the kitchen took 3 days to shoot. Another long day of shooting was the nursery scene.
So take a good look, Danny.
Margot Robbie spent 17 hours seducing Leo in front of 30 members of the film crew.
Yes, I think it's true. Say hi, mommy. Say hi.
In another scene, it was the actress herself who insisted on full nudity, but Scorsese recommended she use a robe. By the way, this was the first nude scene in Robbie's career, which she justified through Naomi's treatment of her body as a commodity. So this scene was quite simply a sale. By the way, the director considers Matthew McConaughey's cult-like improv to be the most important element of the first act. It set the tone for the rest of the film. A scene that was just as crazy was the interrogation sequence. Martin chose to not use the script at all, instead giving the actors one simple task: don't say anything important.
Doesn't ring a bell.
Sorry, I have no recommendation of that.
No. No.
Several takes lasted over 20 minutes, and according to Thelma Schumacher, were worthy of their own short films.
Carnes Corporation? You recall it?
No, I don't recall that at all.
Anything such a film turned out to be a taller order than shooting it. Sure, the studio let the director's imagination run wild, but the Motion Picture Association would not be so forgiving. Martin was forced to cut the sex scenes and either cut or revise the gay orgy. Some furniture was added to the sequence in post-production to hide the actor's genitals. However, the censors did allow 681 curse words. This achievement put The Wolf in the Guinness Book of World Records for most swearing in a motion picture. But this achievement seemed insignificant because the previous one belonged to Casino.
Break your fucking heads and you won't walk out of here. You see that fucking saw? We're gonna use it. We don't fuck around in this place.
Scorsese also used the trick from Shutter Island in post-production. Mistakes are deliberately scattered throughout scenes where the protagonists are taking drugs. Objects change positions, events are out of order, and even the cutaways themselves look incomplete and out of place. The Wolf of Wall Street hit movie theaters on Christmas Eve, 2013, and immediately dominated the box office. With nearly $400 million in ticket sales, it became Martin's highest grossing film and Red Granite Pictures' first commercial success.
The real question is this. Is all this legal? Absolutely fucking not.
3 years later, the company would find itself in the midst of a financial scandal. An FBI investigation led to the discovery that funds stolen from the Malaysian government had been allocated to fund production of The Wolf of Wall Street. The trial would go on to last 3 years, with Martin and Leonardo both interrogated and searched. In 2019, producer Riza Aziz would be acquitted of the charges, but his studio would close its doors.
Money doesn't just buy you a better life, better food, better cars, better pussy. It also makes you a better person.
But in the winter of 2014, 5 Oscar nominations and a Golden Globe for Best Actor were no cause for concern.
I never would have guessed I would have won for Best Actor in a comedy, so I'd like to,
The following year, Martin produced more documentaries and also returned to HBO with his own work, where he proved once again that fiction films can be just as fascinating as anything a screenwriter can come up with.
We were, from the beginning, skeptical about state matters of war and rights.
The 50-year argument follows the story of the New York Review of Books and the handful of radicals that started it. And of course, as was tradition, following the documentary, he decided to create a series. The idea of making a behind-the-scenes biopic about the music industry was a suggestion by Mick Jagger. In the early stages, there were plans to shoot a film, and rough drafts of the script had gotten Paramount Studios' attention. But it was ultimately a friendly cable channel that approved the project. Terrence Winter was again the writer and showrunner, with Martin and Mick Jagger as producers. The director also shot the pilot episode for vinyl. The project seemed to have a bright future, and the pop industry of the 70s was a fruitful topic. The episode, directed by Scorsese, captivated the channel's viewers and was immediately renewed for a second season. But at the end of the 10th episode, ratings had dropped to such low levels that the bosses at Home Box Office closed the project.
I don't know what it is with you people.
Scorsese called it a tragic decision, but took the blame for it because he believed that he should have filmed all of the episodes.
It's too late. It's too late. They fucked us.
In 2015, the director also created the world's most expensive advertisement.
I'm gonna be getting this part. I'm gonna get this part.
The short film, The Audition, was, to put it bluntly, a joke, the goal of which was to show off the luxury casino in Macau and the Philippines. The script was written by Winter, and the actor shot the film in a week without ever leaving New York. The gambling palaces hadn't been completed yet, so green screens were used to portray their luxury interiors. The actors' fees were over $10 million for each participant, which meant they could rest easy regardless of whether the film would ever get picked up by a network. The buyers limited screenings to just the casino opening and commercials in Chinese movie theaters.
I just need 20 seconds of that director, if you don't mind. Just you director? Yes, we've done 5 films together. Oh, my director. I've done 8 films.
Finally, the time had come to shoot another film that had been waiting in the wings for over 20 years.
It took years to reach us.
Preparations for Silence had been ongoing for 4 years at that point. recent delay had caused all of the actors to leave the project, except for Liam Neeson.
I'm happy to help. It is fulfilling. Finally be of use.
Martin had approved Andrew Garfield for the role in 2014.
I thank God for bringing me here.
He was joined by Adam Driver. Preparing for the roles not only cost the actors their time, but also their health. Driver lost 55 pounds, 35 before filming and another 20 during. Garfield turned down other projects for a full year as he grew out his hair and beard. Together, they participated in a 2-week silence retreat and visited dozens of monasteries around the world. Filming took place over 3 months in Taiwan. Local director Ang Lee helped with location scouting for Scorsese. Silence quickly became the worst filming experience of Martin's career. A budget of $46 million was nothing to scoff at. But when artificial sets and green screens are replaced by natural environment and lighting, costs can skyrocket right before your eyes.
I never knew Japan was a country of light. What I have never known it to be as dark as it is now.
This approach squeezed the budget down to the last cent, so the film crew had to skimp on conveniences, even when it came to sleeping arrangements. Add to that the unforgiving weather combined with Martin's health and age. The kid who wasn't allowed to go on walks because of his asthma was here, 70 years later, battling against typhoons to get the shots he needed.
Faith gives me strength, knowledge.
Rodrigo Prieto was able to unleash his full potential as he once again took his place behind the camera. This was also the first time since Shutter Island that Martin had decided to shoot exclusively on film, resulting in stunningly beautiful shots. The only exceptions were candlelit scenes. The team didn't want to use artificial light, so these sequences were filmed with ultra-sensitive digital cameras. This was Liam Neeson's second time playing a priest for Scorsese, and recalled how the director had turned into somewhat of a tyrant on set.
I must conclude it is true.
Martin demanded absolute silence from every member of the film crew, from actors to administrative assistants. If someone broke the silence, filming would stop and the culprit was threatened with being fired. Everyone involved in silence had to remain silent. Upon completion of post-production, Martin held a private screening of the film in the heart of the Catholic world, the Vatican. 400 priests were invited to the premiere, whose opinions mattered more to the director than anything else. When the film ended, the clergymen had absolutely no editorial suggestions. However, the MPAA gave the film an R rating. This was the second film in Martin's career to receive such a rating without any swearing, the first being The Last Temptation of Christ.
I pray for this. Or have I just prayed to nothing?
But audiences didn't appreciate the story of the Portuguese missionaries who carried the word of God to Japan. The film only grossed $23 million at the box office. Given that the film had been financed by independent production companies without any large studios involved in distribution, this was a painful blow. Disparaging reviews from festivals and award organizations only dragged out the punishment. Silence received just one Oscar nomination for Best Cinematography, but Rodrigo Prieto lost out to Linus Sandgren and his work in La La Land. Martin and Robert De Niro had been looking for a project they could do together for several years. They had settled on screenplays a couple of times, but it wasn't until 2007 that a concrete idea had finally started to take shape. Robert had read a book called I Heard You Paint Houses by Charles Brandt and immediately sent it to Martin. The director was immediately interested, because the novel looked like the perfect farewell piece to his portrayals of the criminal world, something Scorsese had been doing his entire life. become well known for his work on Awakenings, American Gangster, and Schindler's List, the latter of which had brought them together back in the early 90s. Afterwards, Zalian had helped complete the script for Gangs of New York, and by 2009 had finished working on the adaptation for The Irishman. Before casting had begun, Brad Gray, head of Paramount Pictures, became interested in the project. Shutter Island had been a profitable success for the studio, so providing a $100 million budget didn't seem like a problem. But after a couple of years of preparations, and due to a series of unsuccessful investments, Gray lost his seat at Paramount and the new bosses abandoned the project. According to the director, no other studio in Los Angeles wanted another De Niro and Scorsese film. But in 2016, they found one. The CEO of Netflix, Ted Sarandos, offered to take on Martin's film with a budget of $160 million. It was no secret that Scorsese was openly opposed to home viewing and didn't like the philosophy of streaming services. To agree to this deal meant that there wouldn't be a theatrical release, because the company's policy didn't allow films to be distributed until after a month on Netflix. Large movie theater chains received their films 90 days before they hit other services, and would not do business any other way. So an agreement with Netflix meant no deal with theaters. But Scorsese convinced the company to bend their rules for him and allow a theatrical release right from the start.
What did I know?
Much later, in August of 2019, Netflix would rescind this deal and the film was released according to the company's standard practices.
We tried everything we could.
But it was too late to do anything about it. The greatest casting challenge they faced was persuading Joe Pesci to join. Robert presented the book to Joe and told him that they simply had to make this film.
Yeah, good, okay, fine.
The actor had retired and is rumored to have turned down about 50 other offers. But how could he say no to such a reunion?
Thanks. Frank.
Hey, Frank, how you doing?
Joe agreed and insisted that he play the role of Tony Crow. But the director wanted to show a different side of the actor and insisted on an unusual character for Pesci, Russell Buffalino.
Do you know my God made this why?
No.
So that the little birdies don't bump their head on when they're flying around.
Martin also called on Harvey Keitel. They hadn't worked together since The Last Temptation of Christ, 30 years earlier.
You don't know how good a friend you got. What? I know. No, you don't know.
Harvey's involvement made the film even more epic. When Al Pacino, who for various reasons had refused to work with Scorsese throughout his career, agreed to play Jimmy Hoffa, the film acquired a new historical significance.
We are the biggest and best and most honest union in this country.
The director knew most of the supporting actors from Boardwalk Empire. 10 people from that series made it into the film.
People, I'm done. Done.
As well as a couple from the recent show Vinyl.
And they prove it.
Ironically, there wasn't a single Irishman in The Irishman.
They wasn't there. They wasn't there.
Even in the early stages of preparation, Martin was concerned with finding actors to play a young De Niro, Pesci, and Al Pacino. This option was considered, but given that the entire film is riddled with flashbacks, it didn't make much sense. So it would be CGI to the rescue.
Whatever you need me to do, I'm available.
The company, Industrial Light and Magic, developed a special motion capture and rejuvenation technology for the film. This allowed the actors to forego conspicuous makeup and prosthetics that were common in movies up to that point. To bring this effect to life, scenes were simultaneously shot on 3 cameras equipped with special lenses.
Which is the camera surrounded by 2 what we call witness cameras, which are infrared cameras.
Test takes with De Niro amazed both the producers and the director. This experimental innovation, created especially for The Irishman, is the main reason the budget became inflated.
Oh, I decided nothing. It's all fine. Oh, come on, Frank.
By the way, the computer-generated rejuvenation was only used on De Niro, Pesci, and Pacino. The rest of the actors still used makeup. The effect may still be noticeable, but keep in mind that these types of graphics are still in their infancy, and The Irishman will go down in history as the first film to try it.
Use the CGI as makeup.
That was the big turning.
Yeah, that's the big thing. Yeah.
The filming began at the end of August 2017. The director was caught off guard by another problem. The 3 main characters were all over 75 years old. Their movements were slower, their postures had changed, even their speech had become quieter.
Like some guy who's always rushing all over the place and they miss the big picture.
The first day on set, Martin was satisfied with Al Pacino's acting, but cinematographer Rodrigo Prieto asked the director to tell Al to get out of his chair more energetically. This was Scorsese's first time working with Pacino, and he didn't want to start off on the wrong foot by telling the actor that his movements were too much like that of an old man. The character of Hoffa was only 49 according to the script. Fortunately, this didn't cause any contention.
Hearing all the bullshit problems he's working through already. I gotta go, start taking a look at this.
In fact, the actor put as much energy as possible into subsequent scenes, which further highlighted the technological advances and contrast between the time jumps.
I'll apologize for being late. After I kidnapped your granddaughter, rip her guts out and send them to a fucking
Of course, sequences where the movements didn't match the actor's supposed age weren't avoided. The most obvious example is the scene with the shopkeeper. De Niro clearly didn't have enough energy, especially considering the person behind the character he was playing. The real Frank Sheeran was about 6'4", and although this scene isn't a good example, the stature of 5'8" De Niro was manipulated through the film through perspective, scenery, and camera movements to mimic the dimensions of the real Irishman.
I don't know how he did it. I ain't gonna ask.
Filming lasted 107 days, the longest shoot of Martin's career, but considering that each take required at least 9 cameras, and the film consisted of 300 scenes in 100 locations, it wasn't that long after all. As for the year it took to edit the film, this was fairly standard for the director. Thankfully, Scorsese wasn't facing pushback from the producers or censors, so he got to include all of his favorite shots in the final cut, including references to his own previous work.
Now, for something like this, you're gonna need 2 guns. A fuse and a backup.
That's fucking crazy.
What are you doing? You're leaving your car?
It's easier to leave it at a garage away.
The film's runtime ended up being 3 hours, the longest film in his career, as well as the longest big-budget American feature film in the last 20 years. The last picture to require such stamina was Kenneth Branagh's Hamlet.
To be or not to be? That is the question.
Netflix turned out to be a sanctuary for Martin, just as HBO had been, because in the same year, even before the premiere of The Irishman, he shot a semi-documentary film about Bob Dylan, covering the legendary Rolling Thunder review tour. In the film, truth and fiction are intertwined. Stage interviews are replaced with real ones, turning history into legend. The magic that Scorsese possesses is unsurpassed. The Irishman premiered on November 27th and immediately became the most watched film on Netflix. It went on to receive nominations for 5 Golden Globes and 10 Oscars.
Marty, I gotta tell you, I love the first season of The Irishman.
Unfortunately, Martin and the crew experienced the same disappointment as they did with Gangs of New York. Not a single award.
And you let this happen in public?
But director Bong Joon-ho let Scorsese know how the global film community felt about him. Spring 2017. Bookstores roll out David Grann's Killers of the Flower Moon. Its subtitle, The Osage Murders and the Birth of the FBI, hinting at a darker chapter in American history. In the early 1920s, the Osage people in Oklahoma went from barely scraping by to sudden oil wealth. That fortune drew in swindlers and opportunists, and soon enough, tribe members started turning up dead. The investigations eventually fell to a newly formed federal agency run by J. Edgar Hoover. This agency would become the FBI. This quiet massacre barely shows up in history books, but it caught Martin Scorsese's eye right after he wrapped Silence. His fascination spurred Paramount Pictures to vie for the film rights. The project had hit written all over it. A widely read book, plus the powerhouse duo of Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio.
That's my weakness.
As soon as DiCaprio finished reading, he signed on. Initially, word was he'd play Tom White, the FBI investigator.
We kind of
threw that out. I felt that that didn't get to the heart of the story of the Osage, frankly. It was an investigation story, it was a whodunit, and he kind of wasn't interested in doing that. And there was this small little section with Ernest and Molly and we had to meet them, and we were like, oh my god, this is the emotion of the story. This gets us into the household, and here is this very twisted, bizarre, sadistic relationship between this white man and this Osage woman, and this kind of encompasses the story much better.
For Scorsese, the grim heart of it all lay in how evil can sprout within a close-knit family. What unfolds isn't just a genocide, but a slow, methodical betrayal of trust. White settlers married Osage women to gain legal rights to oil, then erased anyone standing in the way. Scorsese and screenwriter Eric Roth grasped that the true horror came not from over-the-top gangster theatrics, but from everyday folks willing to commit atrocities against their own.
You realize that this indicates to me that you're planning on adopting and killing his children.
No, if it's not legal and I don't get the money, I'm not gonna do it.
Meanwhile, the budget was escalating. A 1920s era production, actual Oklahoma locations, a star-studded cast, practical effects, the painstaking recreation of Osage life, it all pushed the cost towards $200 million. Paramount officially moved forward, but had doubts it would ever recoup that investment. Then, the pandemic arrived, threatening further delays and expenses. The project nearly collapsed until new backers stepped in. Apple Original Films took on the lion's share. Paramount kept theatrical distribution, and Apple secured the streaming rights. Suddenly, Killers of the Flower Moon was a flagship title for Apple's growing platform. Casting the ensemble also took a while. Leonardo DiCaprio stepped in as Ernest Borgnine, a tense mix of charm and cruelty, perfectly capturing the tragedy's core.
He's not a hero by any stretch of the imagination, but by sheer actions of how easily he was manipulated by Hale, I started to think of him almost like a Lenny of Mice and Men type of character. Like, how slow could this guy possibly be? Not even. But I realized that there's obviously something incredibly conscious about what he was doing. He was playing both sides of the fence, and he was doing one of the most horrific things I could ever imagine a character doing to the person that he allegedly loved. They had this bizarre dynamic which was unlike anything I'd ever seen in cinema history.
I love this girl, Molly. I really do think she's a lady.
For William King Hale, Ernest's uncle and the family patriarch, Scorsese had only Robert De Niro in mind.
I understand I'm wanted. Well, I'm here to turn myself in. What you supposed to have done? Kill somebody. You believe it?
At last, Marty found the ideal project to unite the two icons of his filmography outside of that casino commercial.
That's so.
Yeah.
De Niro dove into researching local political bosses and shady businessmen who ran corruption rackets in Oklahoma's backcountry. He decided on a gentle, almost soothing drawl that clashed starkly with his piercing gaze. His character's one open window to a mind more crooked than Ernest's teeth. In the early script, the lead role belonged to FBI agent Tom White, who doggedly unravels the Osage murders despite local authorities' attempts to shield the criminals. Once DiCaprio pivoted to Ernest, Scorsese offered that agent part to Jesse Plemons.
I want to talk to you about the murders of Rita and Bill Smith and Ann Brown.
Renowned for playing both hapless stooges and chilling psychopaths, and beloved by critics, Plemons had yet to fully crack the A-list. Landing a heroic role for Scorsese marked a big step up.
Oh, I was sent down from Washington D.C. to see about these murders. See, what about him? See who's doing it.
Scott Shepard joined as Ernest's brother, confirming Marty's ongoing fondness for the Breaking Bad universe. Both Shepard and Plemons kicked off major parts of their careers there.
Jesus Christ, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Hey.
Brendan Fraser and John Lithgow also jumped aboard, boasting the film's star power.
I denied the opportunity to speak with Mr. Goodman. I represent both the defendant and the witness.
Interestingly, Killers of the Flower Moon came just before Fraser's celebrated return in The Whale, ending a long drought of major roles and signaling a new upward swing in his career.
You realize that this can be held against you for the rest of your life.
But rising above the rest was Lily Gladstone.
it's terrifying. It's hard being a native actor and this sort of this much that you can audition for. Yeah, Marty showed me what's
Could've just done
possible.
this.
Scorsese saw a
Could've
Native
just
American
done
actress
this.
and found in Gladstone someone who could convey a quiet grace, inner strength, and deep emotional resonance.
So it's powerful. So we need to be quiet for a while.
Gladstone recalled how her heart clicked when she read the script. Molly is a woman watching her family die, in large part due to the man she loves. Gladstone became the audience's lens on the Osage heartbreak.
Mr. President, Molly Burkhart, please send help. There's murder on Osage and the police do nothing.
Because the central goal was to show Osage life from within, everyone agreed on hiring many actors and extras with direct indigenous heritage.
So many deaths we've lost count.
A few took on significant roles, sharing their language skills and cultural insight with the well-known white stars who might not grasp certain nuances.
I mean, you did an incredible job, and you also did an incredible job of doing it the way a white man would say it.
Good job.
Rodrigo Prieto returned as cinematographer. Scorsese challenged him to craft a fresh visual palette.
We were using photography as a basis of representing the different groups. For example, the white settlers were photographed with an emulation of autochrome, which is one of the first color techniques that was invented by the Lumiere brothers. So that was an import from Europe. So that's why it felt appropriate to use that for the Ernest and their family, because they're important for Europe. And the Osage we photographed as naturalistic as possible in terms of color. The scenes where they're alone and their rituals and that sort of thing.
Prieto favored a soft, natural light, something he learned was vital to the Osage after discussing their sun-centered rituals.
Even for the building of the towns and villages, the orientation has to do with the travel of the sun.
All the sun, rainfall, the moon, mother.
He and the crew often improvised on set, thanks to Oklahoma's fickle spring weather. 1 minute it was bright midday sun, the next a torrent of rain. Adapting each day to shifting light gave the film that natural atmosphere Prieto was so eager to capture. Costume prep also demanded precision. The contrast between the newly affluent Osage in lavish European attire and the humbler wardrobes of nearby townsfolk was key. 4-time Oscar nominee Jacqueline West oversaw the film's look, fitting killers in between her work on Dune Parts 1 and 2. For authenticity, she brought on cultural consultant Julie O'Keefe.
My name is Julia Keefe. I'm Osage, and I was the lead Osage wardrobe consultant on Killers of the Flower Moon.
A textiles expert who owned a shop for traditional Osage clothing and served on the council of the National Museum of the American Indian at the Smithsonian. She opened access to archival tribal photos and secured genuine fabrics.
I look at these pieces as part of my life, because these are incorporated and ingrained into Osage life.
In the end, costumes practically became another character, revealing social divisions, a rapidly shifting era, and the unique culture at the heart of the story.
In learning about how a blanket is worn and what the designs of a blanket mean, we learn who the people are.
Legendary production designer Jack Fisk, known for his collaborations with Terrence Malick and Paul Thomas Anderson, handled the film's overall design and set construction. His work on Anderson's There Will Be Blood likely caught Scorsese's eye. Scorsese, Fisk, and the producers scoured Oklahoma in search of the towns and landscapes where the tragedy took place. Striving for accuracy, they shot in authentic streets and interiors still bearing traces of that 100-year-old oil rush. Pahuska, Fairfax, Ralston, and nearby areas welcomed the crew. Their well-worn streets acted like a time capsule of old homes and cafes from another era. Locals joined in as extras and offered land for temporary sets. Some streets got a full makeover. Modern signs replaced with vintage ads, storefronts stocked with period items, and a fresh layer of dust to evoke the world seen a century ago. Filming had been slated for early 2020, but got pushed to spring 2021 by COVID. Safety restrictions forced scenes of large Osage gatherings and ceremonies to be shot in smaller groups, with crowds later expanded through visual effects or multiple combined takes. In the quest for realism, the team often rented not just the main filming sites, but the surrounding areas as well, ensuring pristine audio untouched by traffic, tractors, or airplanes. For domestic moments, Scorsese shot without fixed marks, aiming for a sense of eavesdropping and letting actors move freely. Many of these scenes took place in actual houses, with limited space for living rooms, so Prato tucked extra lights behind furniture and within real lamps. This level of authenticity exacted a high price. COVID protocols, daily testing, strict isolation from the outside world, and Scorsese's perfectionism. He might spend 12 hours on a single dialogue scene, searching for the perfect rhythm among his actors.
That's what happens. Yeah.
When shooting large crowd scenes, the crew raced daylight and braced for gusts that could scatter their setups. Still, it was all in service of the realism. Once filming had wrapped, Thelma Shoemaker stepped in to shape the raw footage. Her first cut ran well over 4 hours, typical for a major Scorsese production. Still, she managed to pare things down without losing the story's slow-building menace. They settled on a runtime of just over 3 hours, and neither Paramount nor Apple pushed for further trims. As Scorsese explained, the key isn't just revealing who killed the Osage and why. It's making people feel how murder grows from close relationships. That only works if you give each scene room to breathe, so that by the end, you feel the pain. It's not just another crime story, it's the poisoning of an entire people's soul.
Listen, we don't want to just end it and say, okay, everybody's in jail. No. It doesn't matter. It's an ongoing problem.
A key creative choice involved weaving Osage songs into the soundtrack. Sometimes it's a brief prayer motif. Other times, it's extended traditional vocals echoing in the background. Scorsese insisted this should never come off like a flashy, exotic flourish. The Osage music had to sound like the very voice of the land, something the characters might not notice, but the viewer does. In July of 2023, just before the movie's release, Robbie Robertson passed away, adding an emotional note to the final sound mix. All that remained was to integrate his music into pivotal scenes, which left Killers of the Flower Moon as a final contribution from a legend. When Killers of the Flower Moon hit theaters, critics pegged it as a major awards contender. Sure enough, in January of 2024, the Academy announced its nominations. The film showed up in 10 categories, including Best Director for Scorsese, and acting nods for Lily Gladstone and Robert De Niro, along with recognition for the screenplay and Robertson's score. But on the night of the '96 Oscars, Oppenheimer and Poor Things swept through the ceremony. With Emma Stone taking the trophy, many had believed Lily Gladstone had all but locked in. In the end, this film, so akin in spirit to Gangs of New York, echoed that earlier picture's fate at the biggest awards show. Despite the outcome, the theatrical run performed decently. A total of $200 million at the box office probably didn't cover its massive budget, yet this was a 3-hour dramatic thriller in a post-pandemic market where streaming remained the real profit engine.
I just love money.
For Apple, it was a decisive move towards bankrolling large-scale projects with an extended theatrical rollout. And for many viewers, it spotlighted one of the most harrowing chapters in U.S. history, an ordeal that hits with a force you can't easily shake off. Martin, though, seems to have caught a second wind. He's everywhere these days. Guest spots on late-night shows, podcasts, cameos in commercials, and TV series, all while still cranking out documentaries. And He's got a half dozen narrative projects on his plate. A Paramount television series, The Devil in White City, about a Chicago murderer in the late 1800s. A biopic about America's 32nd president, Theodore Roosevelt. Plus, a TV adaptation of Gangs of New York. Yes, Martin is past 80. But it looks like he will never stop confessing his love for cinema. Because he always manages to find new words to express it.
Every step is a first step. Every brushstroke is a test. Every scene is a lesson.